My loved ones were asking me to just wait, in reference to my upcoming 50th birthday. Each time I asked, my wife grinned. Patience, she admonished. The house was deserted when I returned home on the day. Nobody contacted. A picture appeared on social media some hours thereafter. As a whole, my in-laws, kids, and wife are at a beach resort. My kid said, "He won't even notice we're gone," which made me laugh. Nothing came out of my mouth. I merely observed. After 3 days, 47 frantic messages begged me over WhatsApp. On this, my 50th birthday, I sit alone in my deserted house at 3:27 in the morning, looking at pictures from a family vacation, a trip to which I was not invited. This is the sum total of my 25 years of marriage and the 2 children I raised to the best of my abilities. Left behind. Or even worse, purposefully abandoned. Pardon me while I take a step back. Roughly 2 months ago, this whole disaster began. In the lead-up to my approaching 50th birthday, my wife Willow started acting strangely. Not terrible strange, just mysteriously strange. She was hushed on the phone and had her laptop closed as soon as I entered the room. Piper, my 20-year-old daughter, began smiling at me and whispering things like, "Dad, you're gonna love what's coming for the big 5-0. I even caught indications from my 23-year-old son Tomas, who is normally too cool to worry about family matters. I won't sugarcoat it, I was pumped. I thought turning 50 was a big deal. We aren't that kind of family, so I didn't anticipate anything outrageously costly. We're relaxed, but we won't be able to roll it. Our funds are being eaten up by Piper's college expenses, and I recently put money down on Tomas's first apartment with his assistants last month. I mean, that's just my dad's money, but I didn't really have $4,000 to spare. The air of mystery made me wonder if a surprise party was in the works. Any time I asked Willow for clarification, she would remind me to be patient. Otis, my father-in-law, even dialed my cell phone last week without warning, something he usually does unless he needs something mended at his house, just to find out when I would be off work to celebrate my birthday. I informed him that I had really asked for that specific day off on Tuesday, but that I had been denied. At 6:15 a.m., there was an emergency at the Riverside project, and my supervisor called me on my birthday to ask if I could come in. Somebody has to be present, and you know who that someone is in every situation. I warned Willow on the phone that I would be late, but assured her that I would return home in time for supper. She spoke strangely and distractedly over the phone, saying, "That works out fine," before abruptly ending the call. The water main broke on my birthday, and I spent the whole day fixing the broken equipment. My birthday went unrecognized by everyone at work. I choose not to bring it up because I am not that type of man and, to be honest, I was eagerly anticipating whatever was waiting for me at home. I went so far as to purchase a bottle of the excellent whiskey during my return journey. Considered myself deserving of at least that amount. It was at 5:53 in the afternoon. I entered my driveway. The surprise party was a bust because there weren't any more automobiles parked outside. It seemed strange, but not frightening, that the house was pitch black. Possibly they were trying to evade me. Nobody was home. Nothing adorning it. No sweets. No spouse. I have no children. It was unclear who was where because there was no note on the counter. My phone was examined. There are no messages. "Hi, I'm Willow." Without making any stops. Mobilized Tomas. The situation is identical. Contacted Piper over text message. Completely non-existent. On or before 7:30 p.m. I sat at my kitchen table by myself, staring at the whiskey bottle, and I wondered if something had gone wrong. I contacted the neighborhood medical center. Completely non-existent. Contacted Lindsay, who is Willow's sister. No response. On my birthday, at 8:14 p.m., while I was still by myself, I cracked open my whiskey and poured myself a glass. I chose to check Instagram at that moment. I rarely post. Most of the time I just watch the kids to see what they get into. Behold, it stood there. Published 3 hours prior. My whole family in one picture. The willow tree. Welcome, Tomas. Piper, please. Oh, Otis. Kinsley, his wife. Additionally, Lindsay. At a posh resort, everyone is beaming as they sip cocktails on a white sand beach. It had been captioned by Tomas. Turning on family vacation mode. Even if we disappear, he won't notice, haha. Too bad. On par. Take note. Even worse were the remarks. Indeed, Willow's response, an emoji representing laughter, is spot on. Lindsay chimed in with a comment about how overworked husbands fail to enjoy life's little pleasures. Even though Piper hadn't said anything, she appeared in the images wearing sunglasses and appearing to be having a blast. I lost track of time while I sat there, aimlessly browsing through additional photos they had uploaded. Community meals. We lend out jet skis. Posing for selfies beside the pool. Everything began 2 days ago and was time-stamped and geotagged to a resort of which I had never heard. Do you recall the irony-themed song by Alanis Morissette? The irony is that I've been guilty of overworking myself for a long time. I occasionally miss school functions. Exhaustion during weekends. Every effort is made to ensure that these individuals are provided for. The college fund for Piper, into which I have been depositing $500 monthly since the day she was born. Because of the down payment on Tomas's apartment, I was unable to replace my 10-year-old truck this year. On this mortgage, I have never been late with a payment. The holidays I wanted to take but couldn't because someone else's needs were always more pressing. Whatever went off, I have no idea. I skipped calling them, so it may have been shock, fury, or an odd feeling of calm. Unable to send a text message. I didn't say anything about the images. I poured myself another shot of whiskey and began to ponder, devoting much mental energy to the task. Oh my God, I'm dying. It's been 25 years since my marriage. I have never once willfully disregarded my wife's needs during that entire time. When she was worried, I never once ignored her. I never hung up the phone, not even during our nastiest arguments. However, every experience has its initial phase. It was a restless night for me. I sat on our back balcony and scrolled through their Instagram account, watching those words stream in. What stood out were the disparities. Willow, I'm worried. Norman, please. 2 hours prior, her profile photo showed her smiling at a restaurant on the beach. While marking oneself at the jet ski rental, Tomas asked me whether I was all right. Piper is reaching out from a cabana beside the pool, her voice filled with sadness. I began meticulously documenting everything and brewed coffee at around 5 in the morning. Images from various online platforms, financial records, and conversation threads. I made copies of everything and put them in a folder. It made me think, albeit it seems strange. Perched on the kitchen counter, the brand new deadbolt and doorknob set remained encased in its original box. I still hadn't decided whether or not to put them in. There seemed to be a boundary there that I might be unable to overcome. The first message from Otis arrived at 7:15 in the morning. Voicemail was the destination. His 2-minute message began with worry and concluded with his statement that I was acting childish. Otis Classique. Never felt worthy of his daughter's love. Never once brought up my humble abode or dependable vehicle. The message is not conveyed clearly enough for me to understand. I proceeded to my workplace as usual. Checked off all the boxes. Returned to my dwelling. The messages continued to pour in. Welcome, Tomas. No, seriously, Dad. The humor has worn off. A tantrum had broken out in Mom. Piper, please. Dad, I beg you. Send a quick text to let us know you're okay. The Willow Tree. Hello. Norman. I contacted the nearby residents, and they confirmed that your vehicle is present. Tell me why you're not responding. Hello, Lindsay. Everyone is concerned about you, Norman. This isn't the appropriate response to your frustration, whatever it may be. Get a life. Almost broke my quiet with Lindsay's last one. Almost there. I chose to remain silent, though, because I recalled her remark regarding my busy husband. That night, I removed Willow as an AU on my 2 primary cards and called the credit card providers to put up my financial firewall. Checked our mortgage account and confirmed that my new, separate account would be used to pay the next installment, which is due in 3 days. At work, I updated my direct deposit details. My next move caught me completely off guard. I calculated all of our household expenditures using percentages and put them in an Excel spreadsheet. Who covered the costs? So, who chipped in where? throughout the past decade. Willow wouldn't be happy with the story told by the numbers. Our shared costs were funded by 82% of my salary. I contributed nearly all of our retirement funds, 94%. I paid for all of the kids' college expenses. How was Willow's contribution made? Looking at our combined spending history, it's clear that most of her deposits were promptly spent on Lindsay lunches, clothing, and what she said were domestic essentials. Indeed, those included pricey candles and throw cushions, which were actually off-limits. Would you say that's bitter? Indeed, perhaps it is. But 25 years of slightly regretting overworking? Things change when you find out that their fun was paid for by your job. At about midnight, I came across a 2-week-old text thread in which Willow and Lindsay were corresponding. The willow tree. Is it necessary to inform Norman about the trip? Hello, Lindsay. So what's the point? The price will be his only point of contention. The willow tree. Indeed, that's funny. His undivided concentration is always fixed on his work. Hello, Lindsay. I doubt he'll realize it till next weekend. The willow tree. If it happens shortly. Something inside of me solidified at that very instant. I had clung to the slender possibility that perhaps, very possibly, some serious miscommunication occurred. That was the end. The tone of the texts changed by the 4th day of their trip. Anger. Welcome, Tomas. Excuse me, Dad. For the entire night, Mom had sobbed. Where are you having trouble? The willow tree. Norman, I don't know the rules of your game, but this is really harsh. Oh, Otis. What I've always suspected about you, Norman, is now being proven. Immature and self-centered. On the 5th day, they began to freak out because they realized I hadn't said a word. The willow tree. We're going to shorten our vacation. Returning to sleep tomorrow. Kindly attend. Piper, please. Dear Father. Some terrible thing must have occurred to you. Welcome, Tomas. This is completely unacceptable if you're doing it intentionally. I remained silent. Regarding their return, though, I did begin to make arrangements. Delivered Willow's belongings to the guest room, including her clothing. I changed the password for the Wi-Fi. Added a security code. The computer lock is on. Insignificant details that conveyed meaning. No matter how much you try, nothing will change. On that fateful night, Piper left me a very illuminating voicemail. Her sobs were loud and clear. Vocal cords constricted. Noticing my birthday and expressing her regret. Grandma Kinsley forbade her from contacting me because she thought it would ruin their surprise. Everyone made her feel like she was exaggerating her feelings about the trip, even though she felt odd about it. It was a family outing, and Otis had paid for much of it. Almost dialed her number again. Almost there. Still, I couldn't help but think of her from those beach photos. Oh my God, I'm dying. It's been 25 years since my marriage. I have never once willfully disregarded my wife's needs during that entire time. When she was worried, I never once ignored her. I never hung up the phone, not even during our nastiest arguments. However, every experience has its initial phase. It was a restless night for me. I sat on our back balcony and scrolled through their Instagram account, watching those words stream in. What stood out were the disparities. Willow, I'm worried. Norman, please. 2 hours prior, her profile photo showed her smiling at a restaurant on the beach. While marking oneself at the jet ski rental, Tomas asked me whether I was all right. Piper is reaching out from a cabana beside the pool, her voice filled with sadness. I began meticulously documenting everything and brewed coffee at around 5 in the morning. Images from various online platforms, financial records, and conversation threads. I made copies of everything and put them in a folder. It made me think, albeit it seems strange. Perched on the kitchen counter, the brand new deadbolt and doorknob set remained encased in its original box. I still hadn't decided whether or not to put them in. There seemed to be a boundary there that I might be unable to overcome. The first message from Otis arrived at 7:15 in the morning. Voicemail was the destination. His 2-minute message began with worry and concluded with his statement that I was acting childish. Otis Classique. Never felt worthy of his daughter's love. Never once brought up my humble abode or dependable vehicle. The message is not conveyed clearly enough for me to understand. I proceeded to my workplace as usual. Checked off all the boxes. Returned to my dwelling. The messages continued to pour in. Welcome, Tomas. No, seriously, Dad. The humor has worn off. A tantrum had broken out in Mom. Piper, please. Dad, I beg you. Send a quick text to let us know you're okay. The willow tree. Hello. Norman. I contacted the nearby residents, and they confirmed that your vehicle is present. Tell me why you're not responding. Hello, Lindsay. Everyone is concerned about you, Norman. This isn't the appropriate response to your frustration, whatever it may be. Get a life. Almost broke my quiet with Lindsay's last one. Almost there. I chose to remain silent, though, because I recalled her remark regarding my busy husband. That night, I removed Willow as an AU on my 2 primary cards and called the credit card providers to put up my financial firewall. Checked our mortgage account and confirmed that my new, separate account would be used to pay the next installment, which is due in 3 days. At work, I updated my direct deposit details. My next move caught me completely off guard. I calculated all of our household expenditures using percentages and put them in an Excel spreadsheet. Who covered the costs? So, who chipped in where? Throughout the past decade. Willow wouldn't be happy with the story told by the numbers. Our shared costs were funded by 82% of my salary. I contributed nearly all of our retirement funds, 94%. I paid for all of the kids' college expenses. How was Willow's contribution made? Looking at our combined spending history, it's clear that most of her deposits were promptly spent on Lindsay lunches, clothing, and what she said were domestic essentials. Indeed, those included pricey candles and throw cushions, which were actually off-limits. Would you say that's bitter? Indeed, perhaps it is. But 25 years of slightly regretting overworking? Things change when you find out that their fun was paid for by your job. At about midnight, I came across a 2-week-old text thread in which Willow and Lindsay were corresponding. The willow tree. Is it necessary to inform Norman about the trip? Hello, Lindsay. So what's the point? The price will be his only point of contention. The willow tree. Indeed, that's funny. His undivided concentration is always fixed on his work. Hello, Lindsay. I doubt he'll realize it till next weekend. The willow tree. If it happens shortly. Something inside of me solidified at that very instant. I had clung to the slender possibility that perhaps, very possibly, some serious miscommunication occurred. That was the end. The tone of the texts changed by the 4th day of their trip. Anger. Welcome, Tomas. Excuse me, Dad. For the entire night, Mom had sobbed. Where are you having trouble? The willow tree. Norman, I don't know the rules of your game, but this is really harsh. Oh, Otis. What I've always suspected about you, Norman, is now being proven. Immature and self-centered. On the 5th day, they began to freak out because they realized I hadn't said a word. The willow tree. We're going to shorten our vacation. Returning to sleep tomorrow. Kindly attend. Piper, please. Dear Father. Some terrible thing must have occurred to you. Welcome, Tomas. This is completely unacceptable if you're doing it intentionally. I remained silent. Regarding their return, though, I did begin to make arrangements. Delivered Willow's belongings to the guest room, including her clothing. I changed the password for the Wi-Fi. Added a security code. The computer lock is on. Insignificant details that conveyed meaning. No matter how much you try, nothing will change. On that fateful night, Piper left me a very illuminating voicemail. Her sobs were loud and clear. Vocal cords constricted. Noticing my birthday and expressing her regret. Grandma Kinsley forbade her from contacting me because she thought it would ruin their surprise. Everyone made her feel like she was exaggerating her feelings about the trip, even though she felt odd about it. It was a family outing, and Otis had paid for much of it. Almost dialed her number again. Almost there. Still, I couldn't help but think of her from those beach photos. Behaving carefree while smiling. Not showing any signs of distress. Young adults, those in the 20s, are fully autonomous individuals. I put the new deadbolt in the morning they were supposed to come back, rather than excluding them indefinitely. I'm not being petulant. However, in order to drive home my argument, the doorbell would have to be rung. On my face, rather than pretending like nothing transpired, they returned to our home after acknowledging what they had done. I waited and skipped work that day. Willow notified me via text message that their flight had touched down at 2:47 p.m. I detected the arrival of their Uber in the driveway around 4:32 p.m. Various speakers. Rolling suitcases on hard floor. Subsequently, there was blackout, which, I presume, was the instant they discovered their keys were useless. It was a ringing doorbell. I deliberated over my response. I discovered a scene of burnt, weary faces attempting to put on an air of casual cheerfulness when I did this. Willow was seen cradling a gift bag, clearly not part of their initial baggage. Tomas, fully engrossed in everything but me. Piper about to burst into tears. Opposing them, with equally disapproving faces, are Otis and Kinsley. Filling the doorway, I remained motionless. No sound. Willow took the lead. They began by expressing their concern. How hospitals were referred to by them. How their anxiety had caused them to shorten their journey. The focus then shifted to the pre-birthday party aspect of the trip's planning. But now things were getting tricky. Plus, a special meal was going to be their surprise for me when they returned. I remained silent. I took out my phone just now. Logged onto Instagram. Tomas raised the screen and held it aloft. Even if we disappear, he won't notice, haha. What followed was a unique period of quiet. Tomas fixated on his footwear. Real tears welled up in Piper's eyes. I repelled Willow's attempt to seize my phone with ease. Otis rose to his feet and declared that this was absurd. They ought to have behaved themselves and gone inside. Now I've spoken. I made it clear to Otis that he was not welcome here today. He could simply leave the bags where they were. He seemed so shocked. His expression was one of shock. Someone had rejected him, likely for the first time ever. He was told to go. Amazing Otis. Getting used to having everyone follow his lead. I stared him down as he stood there, sputtering on my porch. Kinsley attempted to defuse the situation, claiming that the journey had worn them down. They might meet tomorrow to discuss it. It was tomorrow that I mentioned would be convenient for them. The situation was different for Otis, though. I opened the door for Willow, Tomas, and Piper after they departed. With them in it, the house took on a new vibe. Less pronounced. Tense. Willow was furious that her belongings were gone from our bedroom and wanted to know my secret. I then pulled out my folder. This is what the screenshots look like. Financial records. The breakdown of expenses. Spread everything out on the kitchen table and said that I just had one question. When did I become completely irrelevant to this family? Willow made an effort to transform it. Claimed I was exaggerating. The trip was only a vacation. That they had intended to commemorate my birthday upon their return. I made sure she saw the Lindsay text thread. She turned pale. In an effort to gloss over his Instagram caption, Tomas said, defeated it as an idle remark. That everyone on social media is always making things up. I showed him the remarks he had made during the previous 12 months. Everyone making fun of my absence. Lack of interest. Acting like a normal father. He ran out of reasons. Just now, Piper sobbed. The trip had been planned for months, but she still managed to let slip the fact while crying. The initial plan called for me to be a part of it. Thanks to Otis, Willow was persuaded that we might all benefit from a family reset, free from my pessimistic outlook. We were inside its core by 7 o'clock in the evening. The unflattering reality that no one dared to speak. They'd made up a story about me. Providing dull services. Norman. Dad Norman isn't there. Norman, the slave to his job. That gave them a good reason to treat me like trash. In their minds, I wouldn't mind being cut off from my own family, so they reasoned. That I would be oblivious to. I would not experience that. Worst of all, I realized that they weren't completely incorrect. I had allowed my job to define me. I was late for events that required overtime. At times when I ought to have spoken out, I remained silent. I was just now speaking out. I let them know that I had funded a separate account with the majority of my funds. While Willow planned her future, I would cover the bills, mortgage and utilities included, for 3 months. That I would still pay for Piper's tuition out of my own pocket, but they would no longer have access to their discretionary funds. We gave them 3 months to come to an agreement on how to fix our marriage or be ready to divorce. I was being unjust, Tomas said as he rushed out. Piper sobbed her way to her chamber. As if someone had just informed Willow that Santa wasn't real, Willow sat at the table and stared at the mound of proof that I had gathered. A final message sounded on my phone at about midnight. Coming to you from Willow. All of this was completely unintentional on my part. You were expected to receive the trip as a gift. Need some quiet time to unwind. We were planning to return with a nice surprise for you. Things became so twisted, and I don't know how. 3 times, I read it. My response was consistent every time. Total bewilderment. At this very moment. She persisted in fabricating tales despite everything. Continuing to reshape the world. My response was painstakingly spelled out. Willow, I possess the receipts. A total of 47 of them. Furthermore, there are probably 100 more that have slipped your mind. Lies have no place now. I finally got some sleep in my own bed after days of being on the road when I turned off my phone. On my own, yet not lonely. You're mistaken. Difficult decisions and tougher discussions would await tomorrow. But I would get my way with those decisions for the first time in 25 years. At long last, an update. I was startled awake at 4:17 in the morning on the first morning following the altercation. Slightly muted, yet unmistakably emanating from within the residence. Willow was in the guest room. I had to wait a while to figure it out. Strange matter. Zero emotion washed over me. Rather than contentment. No wrongdoing. Nothing at all. My family and I returned from our beach vacation 2 weeks ago, in case you were wondering if anything has changed. Dinners were tense and breakfasts were uncomfortable for 2 weeks. There were 2 weeks of hushed conversations and banged doors. The marriage's 25 years of bliss have been shattered in the last 2 weeks. Big dramatic moments were supposed to happen the morning after their return. My deepest condolences. Vague commitments to make a difference. No, that is not accurate. Willow came downstairs at 7:30 in the morning, made coffee as if it were any other day, and then asked if I had gotten over it yet, as if my reaction were a tantrum that needed to be let out. I stared at her for what felt like an eternity before sliding my phone across the counter, screenshots still open. Those in which she and Lindsay questioned if I had observed their absence. Tomas captioned those photos where she giggled. As if beholding them for the very first time, she gazed at them intently. So I took a different tack. Claimed that someone had hacked into her phone. Those items were never written by her. It is evident that her account was compromised. My 25-year wife's preference for fabricating a complex conspiracy theory, instead owning up to her harsh and cruel behavior, became crystal clear to me at precisely 7:43 in the morning. A printed bank statement was then presented to her by me. Detailed all of the money that was taken out of our joint account to pay for the vacation. I handed her the hidden card's credit card statements. Details how I'd helped this family out for decades while she secretly racked up a $13,000 debt. Do you want to know the most insane thing? It seemed as if the money didn't even matter to her. Reiterated that Otis would assist her in repaying the debt. That the true problem was my workaholism, and I was being too concerned with money to see beyond it. What a piece of trash. It's my fault that I have to work 60-hour weeks to support her spending habits and everything else. A whole other ballgame with the kids. Tomas, defensive and hungover, arrived that first day at about midday. I began to explain that my reaction was excessive. The fact that it was merely an inane social media post. I was being poisonous because I was overanalyzing everything. I decided to show him my feed from social media. What his pals thought. Whoever says things like, "Oh, your dad sounds just like mine," is full of boomer energy. When he offers to hang out with you, simply tell him you're busy, dude. I am a master at that. What sort of man makes fun of his dad online so he can fit in with his friends? I questioned him. After putting down $4,000 on an apartment, What sort of son blows the same amount on a beach resort party 2 weeks later? He lacked satisfactory responses. Simply said that I am confused by the ins and outs of social networking. Afterwards, they departed. Returned 5 days ago. But Piper was unique. She did express regret. Accused Kinsley and Otis of pressuring her to join the trip. Willow informed her that I was likely too busy to take her call on my birthday, but she insisted she call anyhow. In her story, I find credence. On the whole, yes. However, I saw that she was smiling in those beach images around sunset cocktail hours, despite though she is not of legal age to be there. Not quite appearing to be tormented with shame. So, sure, her tuition is still being paid for by me. No longer will funds be sent to the school via the joint account, from which they seem to disappear without a trace. Things began to heat up again about the third day after their return. At 6:15 p.m., without warning, Otis arrived just as I was reheating leftovers in the microwave. The new door code had been supplied to him by Willow, so he walked in without knocking. Immediately began to complain that I was being unreasonable. How a simple misunderstanding was causing me to ruin this family. My tone was calm. Kept him as a tenant. Calmly inquired as to the pricing of the resort. His chest swelled. I stated that wasn't my intention. Asking one more, I inquired, "When you took my family on vacation without me, how much did you spend?" At that point, he revealed the shocking truth. $8,000. For a group of 5. Throughout the course of 5 days. Figure it out. That amounts to more than $300. On an individual basis. On a daily basis. That is the most money I have ever spent on a vacation. Every one of our family vacations was reasonably priced. Enjoying the outdoors. Vacations spent on the road. We sometimes spend the weekend at a little motel that has a pool where the kids may play. For Piper's education fund, I wanted to know if Otis was aware of the amount I had. He remained silent. But I still informed him. $5,000. Gathered $500 here and there throughout the course of several years. That could have been used on a more enjoyable vacation, a more modern vehicle, or renovations to one's house. Instead, I decided on her future. After that, I inquired as to the extent to which he had helped fund his granddaughter's schooling. The color reddened his cheeks with anger. They began to mutter something about how that was beside the point. In what other ways he had made chances available to Willow and the children. The chance to learn that ignoring the person who foots the bill for their existence is acceptable is one such opportunity. Opportunities like making it clear that beach parties and cocktails are more important than respect and loyalty. Before I contacted the authorities to report trespassing, I gave him 30 seconds to vacate my property. At 6:27 p.m., he departed. He has not communicated with me personally after then. That was the last straw for Willow. Accused me of being cruel for mistreating her father. Heard me say I was envious of him. The real reason I was sad, he said, was because my family would never have the same experiences he could provide them. And guess what? Some truth to that might be there. Otis money has never existed for me. No way. Otis time is over for me. Through 25 years of it. While he was squandering his inheritance on early retirement, I toiled away at creating something for us. The first week had passed when the lines of battle were well defined. For a short time, Willow lived with Lindsay. Tomas has stopped responding to my texts altogether. Piper began to drop by with greater regularity. Typically while Willow was absent. There were divisions within the family. When Willow was going through a tough period, her parents and siblings rallied around her, posting nebulous messages of support on social media. A care package containing whiskey and a note from my 3-state-away sister informed me that she has always considered Willow to be a princess. Following then, the harsh truth of the financial situation became apparent. Willow called in a state of worry 10 days after getting back from the trip because a shop had denied her credit card. Every one of my accounts no longer had her listed as an authorized user. She was concerned that I would continue to punish her financially. As if conversing with a small child, I gently clarified that nothing was being withheld from them. All I was doing was dividing up our money. The money she made belonged to her. Now my income belonged to me. There was enough money in the joint account to cover the mortgage and utilities for 3 months. Either new arrangements or our lives would diverge after that. She began to cry at that point. True sobs this time. Having nothing to do with our marriage, my sentiments, or the disintegration of our family. Regarding monetary matters, Otis sent me a text message at 11:43 p.m. Only 4 words. "We can talk about a deal." I remained silent. Nothing needed to be resolved just yet. The divorce paperwork has not been filed. Despite having 3 consultations, no lawyers were formally retained. After years of acting as if they could escape reality on my dime, this family is now facing gravity head-on. After settling into this new routine for 2 weeks, an unforeseen event occurred. Tomas arrived at the residence on a Tuesday morning at 7:30. No bath. Red eyes. As if he had spent the entire night awake. His purpose in being there was not to express regret. More like though he had at last performed his own arithmetic. Where does he now reside? Is it the one I assisted with the initial payment? It became clear that the monthly expenses exceeded his initial estimation. Service providers. World Wide Web. Food items. Everything that materialized seemingly out of thin air at home, yet really cost real money when purchased in a store. His money had already been depleted. He had also spent more than he had anticipated on the vacation. He planned to use his own credit card for trips and drinks, thinking he could figure it out later. Now the time had come, and he was about to drown. That which is inherent to me. A little, injured section. I just wanted to send him on his way by telling him this was a great lesson in life. Still, my fatherly side couldn't pull it off. On the contrary, I cooked him breakfast. Guidance on creating a simple budget spreadsheet was provided to him. Showed him exactly what items actually cost in the real world. I had been quietly navigating the globe as he posted about his dad being a boomer. It was midday, and he still looked stunned. I learned a lot, not only about my finances, but also about the impact I had on this family beyond being a joke on his social networking sites. He remained silent. Indirectly, of course. However, his actions had a more profound impact on me than any expression of regret could. In the middle of dinner, he erased every single one of his social networking apps off his phone. He claimed he needed to collect himself. Eliminating the background din. Requested if he could spend Sundays at my house so I could guide him through all this grown-up stuff. I suppose it's progress. Things have been different with Willow. As soon as the first shock subsided, she went into damage control mode. Got to talking to our common acquaintances about it. Shared a lengthy and nebulous Facebook status update regarding recovering from unforeseen life events. It seemed like I'd gone completely bonkers because of that. I'm experiencing a midlife crisis, and Lindsay has been her spokesperson, informing anybody who would listen about it. That by severing ties with Willow, I am engaging in financial abuse. That the trip was meant to be a treat, not a punishment, for me. No need for me to respond to any of that. My true friends and family have always seen through it. What about the other stuff? Tossing it aside. Piper is caught in the midst of it all. Feels bad about taking the vacation. Regrets the fact that she still desires our relationship. Apologizes to her mom for making her angry. Everyone is feeling guilty. She is under no need to take a stand, and I've done my best to convey that. No matter what happens to Willow, I will always be her dad. It is still covered for her college. I am certain of her future. Willow stopped by for a serious conversation 3 weeks later. Having breakfast at the same spot every morning for the past 2 decades. Inquired as to whether or not I was serious about proceeding. Considering my level of commitment to ruining our marriage for the sake of a single slip-up. My phone was retrieved by me. Presented the 47 messages to her once more. I wanted to know which one remembered my birthday. I had no idea which one expressed regret for leaving me out of a family vacation. Which one was actually worried about anything other than avoiding detection. She was unable to identify even one. My query, which had been nagging at me for weeks, was then posed to her. At what point did I become expendable? At what point did I become so unimportant that you assumed I wouldn't pay attention to you? Her subsequent words revolutionized the situation. It wasn't unexpected, she claimed, that she had felt as though our lives were intersecting for years, maybe even a decade. I was usually working, so she sought to connect with me, but I was too busy. Fatigue is a constant companion. Constantly preoccupied with giving instead than receiving. She simply adapted in the end. Designed a life that could function without my interference. And guess what? My heart sank. Because it does contain some truth. From time to time, I have put providing ahead of having someone there. For business, I have skipped a few events. After working 60-hour weeks, I've been too exhausted to go on date evenings. Additionally, I oversaw the Little League games for Tomasa, contributed to Piper's scientific endeavors, grasped the lawn and repaired the dripping faucets, and ensured that we could continue to live under cover by keeping the vehicles going. By whatever means at my disposal, I manifested my presence. Apparently, not in the ways that Willow had hoped. We had a 4-hour conversation that day. Straight talk. Confrontational discourse. Regarding pent-up desires, grudges, and the gradual deterioration of mutual understanding that results from such a state of affairs. She inquired about our chances at midnight. If only the journey could be excused. Regarding the discreet credit card. For all the little betrayals that built up to the major one. I confessed to her that I was utterly confused. Maybe it's doable to forgive. To forget, however, was not. The wounds of a broken trust remain long after the wounds have healed. The day after that, she completed the transfer of her belongings to Lindsay's. She expressed the need for some space to discover her identity apart from me. No matter what that implies. My 50th birthday was exactly 1 month ago. It has been exactly 1 month since I returned home to a deserted house and realized how unnoticed I had grown by the folks I had assumed would keep me company. I get furious sometimes. Sometimes I'm simply exhausted. On the other hand, being visible to myself after decades has brought me a strange new serenity most days. 3 mornings each week, I've begun swimming at the community center. Have been going out to happy hour every once in a while with some co-workers. I went so far as to join a Saturday hiking club. What Tomas terms adulting lessons now takes place every Sunday at our house. We make the supper together. Verify his spending plan. Discuss important topics. My house and Lindsay's house are alternate stops for Piper. Managing the shifting family dynamics as gracefully as a 20-year-old can manage. A daily text from Willow. Taking turns asking about bills and reminiscing about the past. In this practical, I respond. Just let the rest be. Her divorce attorney gave me a letter yesterday. Same old, same old. Fair requests, in fact. I was astonished that she isn't going for broke. My own social media status has been updated from married to it's confusing. Simply put, it is. Challenging as life is. Family dynamics are complex. Complexity abounds in love, pain, and forgiveness. The only remaining thing, though, is simple. You can't hide from me. None of my relatives. My buddies, not at all. Above all else, I must not talk to myself. Plus, that exposure. I should have spent that money on the beach vacation I never got to have. I went ahead and checked our bank accounts first. Last Friday, sure enough, someone took $4,000 out of our joint savings account. I had already paid Tomas that much for his apartment. Does it happen by chance? Personally, I don't think so. I discovered that Otis had been discussing a memorable family vacation for weeks in his prior social media posts. Accordingly, this was hardly an act of spontaneity. This was deliberated. The plans were made apart from my presence. Designed to accommodate my needs. Despite my birthday, it was planned. I had gone through a range of emotions, from hurt to rage to icy calculation, by midnight. I began recording every detail as soon as I pulled out my laptop. Images of the posts as screenshots. Statements from the bank. The falsehoods they told me about my birthday surprise in chronological order. Let me tell you something about the silent, dependable guy. No one ever seems to notice when he shows there. Stuff catches our eye. Certain things are etched into our memories. We are also familiar with the locations of all the graves, so we can easily find them when we've had enough. I meticulously recorded all of our financial transactions on my birthday night. 25 years of marriage documented in mathematical spreadsheets. Who covered the costs? So, who chipped in where? And whose sacrifice was it? They would not have liked the story told by the data. Another thing was discovered by me at about 2 in the morning. An email from Willow including a credit card statement. Indeed, we exchanged passwords. On one hand, I did. I was unaware that such a card existed. I have accumulated $13,000 in debt over the past 3 years. Stylish apparel. Pampering days at the spa. Outings with Lindsay that mysteriously set you back $200 every time. Additionally, the resort they stayed at recently filed charges. Nearly $6,000 in the bank. Even though I'm typically a dry-eyed guy, I'll confess that I felt a pinch behind my eyes. No, not sorrowful sobs. Controversial individuals. I don't understand how the individuals I've sacrificed so much for seem to have no idea who I am. Still no messages in the morning inquiring as to my well-being. Not sending any birthday wishes. Completely non-existent. A few more beach shots and a karaoke video featuring Tomas and Otis. The slogan. For some reason, Dad would absolutely despise this. I got a shower. Got a job. Returned to my dwelling. Perused social media once more. They were well into the second day of their holiday. Feedback from friends of Willow's who wanted to know how the resort was. What was her response? Mystical paradise. It was wonderful to escape reality for a time. Life as it happens. There I am. Truthfully, I am. These were the things she should flee from. I took a sip of more whiskey and settled on a course of action. On the second day, at precisely 9 o'clock in the morning, I contacted my bank to arrange up a new account to receive my future paycheck. Secondly, I requested the contact information of Cody's attorney by calling him. He went through a divorce last year. Thirdly, I began to relocate Willow's belongings to the guest room. It wasn't a rush on my part. I was trying to be detailed. Similarly to finding termites in your home's foundation. Putting a Band-Aid on top and crossing your fingers won't cut it. To determine if the building is salvageable, you must first dig to the bottom to discover the extent of the damage. Piper finally texted me on the third day of their vacation, 2 days after my lost birthday. Excuse me, Dad, how are things going? As if I didn't exist and they were all at the beach resort anyway. As if my milestone birthday hadn't occurred. As if nothing had changed. I remained silent. Tomas texted an hour later to see if I could verify that he had left his laptop charger in his previous room. I don't know their exact location. Not a single thing associated with my birthday. That one, too, eluded me. As night fell, the messages became increasingly worrisome. Someone named Willow texted me to see whether I was upset about anything. Piper made 2 calls. Saying, "Mom's freaking out a little," Tomas sent an odd message. It would be enough if you could simply reply to her text. I remained silent. Rather, I uploaded an Instagram photo that hadn't been shared in months. It was just the 2 of us, celebrating my birthday with a cake I had purchased from the supermarket. Image missing. Not tagged. I only have a date stamp. At that point, it snapped. My WhatsApp began to explode at precisely 9:44 p.m. on the third day that they were gone. Repeated messages. Willow is absolutely terrified. For once, Tomas is genuinely concerned. Piper began to send increasingly emotional voicemails. At the stroke of midnight, I had tallied 47 messages across all channels. Written words. Instant messaging app. Direct messages sent on Instagram. Even electronic correspondence. Our return home is tomorrow, according to Willow's most recent message. Kindly attend. Speak to each other. Sure, we can chat. I had to make one more stop before I could continue. In order to get replacement door locks. Because there are some teachings that should be etched into stone, like the importance of not taking others for granted. Not engraved in sandstone. Update 1. The overwhelming response to my last post is greatly appreciated. I was unprepared for the overwhelming response. To some, I was referred to as a doormat. There were others who advised me to set fire to everything. I prefer things to simmer, although I do enjoy a good blaze. I have always been. The 47 messages, then. The first message arrived precisely at 9:44 p.m. After 3 days at the beach, they returned home. Just a quick question. Norman, are you available? Coming to you from Willow. At 3:28 in the morning, on message 47. Please, just answer me, was her new level of request.